Aloha, it's Dave Lawrence. How are you? A big mahalo for tuning in. We're in the HPR Atherton Performing Arts Studio, and it's a special thing. We have a lot of events that we do in here, but I don't think I've ever done one that I'm as privileged to do as this. It's Journey's Neal Schon. It's my 7th time getting to sit and pick your mind, so big mahalo. Thanks for doing this.
How you doing, Dave? It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again, too, and we're going to be talking about The Calling, Neal's new record, but before we do, I just got to say, what a show last night.
It was fun. You know, I think we got off to the right foot. Looking forward to Friday and Saturday. Yeah, it was fun. It's so always great to get back to the island here. You know, I have such a history with this place, and you know, the beginning of me starting to play here in 1970 with Santana, and so it's been a nice, beautiful, long run, and it's always amazing to get back here. There's like such, you know, magical environment here.
16 in that very building.
15.
15.
Yeah.
At the Christmas of December 1970. Can you imagine that? I mean, so that's got to be a little humbling.
Yeah, and then, you know, so many great years at the Crater. I sort of miss that.
The Crater.
You know, I run a motorcycle sometimes when I come here, and just to drive up in there and remember it. You know,
is that what you do?
So many shows there. Actually, the Crater Festival in 1973 was Journey's second gig ever. When we first started, we played Winterland for Bill Graham
New Year's Eve
the night before, and then flew over here and played the Crater the next day.
Was that a Bill Graham show, or he have anything to do with the Hawaii end, or no?
I don't remember.
What a cool thing! I mean, what a start, huh, Bill?
Yeah,
Winterland, then here.
Somehow I don't think that we would have ever been able to survive playing in smaller blues clubs there, though. We were kind of like, you know, known as, you know, the Dead on steroids, like jam band, original jam band.
And you were.
San Francisco, yeah.
Yeah, that early journey. Well, last night, as you returned to the arena, before you got on stage, a little bit of The Calling got on into the venue too, and I'm imagining for some of the folks there that was their first time getting to hear it. I've been digesting the record ever since we did our phoner.
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody. They probably didn't know what they were listening to last night, because when we come here, we're usually not able to bring the screens and all that. And usually, you know, when we have our screens, we put a picture of the record out, you know, up
that's
there.
nice.
And let people know what they're listening to.
Little visual cue.
Yeah, this is what you're listening to. And so what you'll be hearing on Friday and Saturday is actually my solo record, The Calling, before we play.
That's cool. It's a nice way to introduce it to folks, as you had said you were going to do. The album has a lot of different kind of flavors on it, Neal, and you've got Igor Len doing just about every track on there practically, right? I mean, he's in not only the piano, he's also helping you out in other ways.
Igor Len, I met him years back and did Electric World, which was like a double CD that I put out years ago. A very like progressive, avant-garde jazz, you know, African rhythms. It was like all world music, I would call it, you know. And you know, it was really, I listen to it now and I think it was a bit ahead of time. Not exactly a commercial record, but I think a pretty good, just a cool statement as a music, you know, musicality and you know, paying homage to a lot of great
reflective
artists.
Of your background too.
Yeah,
with the Santana
exactly.
thing.
And so anyway, we did that, and then we did Eye on You, and you know, always had a great time working with Igor. This album though came about in sort of a different way. A lot of the other albums prior to that we wrote on the spot. Eye on You, actually, Igor brought in a lot of music that he already had. I was on tour, and then I added to what he had, and we, you know, put it together, and it came out like that. But this record, I went in kind of with a blank slate, and you know, I had a lot of ideas, but no songs. And I really wrote it without Igor this time. I just kind of made it up on the spot with Steve Smith was there. It was great to play with him again. And I'd find a riff like in a looping machine that I brought, and I'd have Steve lay down a rhythm groove, you know, about 4 bars in the Pro Tools, and loop him, and then I just sort of, you know,
riff on
sketch with a rhythm guitar of what I was hearing in my head. Then he'd come back and he'd write out my arrangement, whatever I put down on the rhythm guitar, and play it one full drum track through like he was playing with a full-on orchestra, you know, with dynamics and the whole thing. We'd talk about what section was going to be like soloing section, or this is going to be the theme melody, and, you know, he played accordingly. So he was perfect drummer for me to work with because he's has such a musical mind, and, you know, he's very, you know, just thought out. His parts are real thought out without sounding contrived and generic. You know, it still feels loose, but it's tight. You know, and for anybody that listens to the record more and more, really his drums really contribute to this record a lot.
Oh, and they're high in the mix. They have a real prominent sound.
I think he was scared when he first heard my mixes because I actually had him higher than me at a lot of spots. But, you know, I didn't want to go. You know, when you record drums, you record with tight mics and you record with ambient mics. Led Zeppelin is usually 2 mics. You know, like one mic in a certain part of an ambient room,
right,
and, you know, one tight mic on a snare,
and then
maybe a bass drum. But usually they use nothing but room and very little tight miking. And so I wanted to go more for an ambient sound on Smith. I had a nice sounding room, kind of acoustically like the one we're in right here. I'm hearing a nice echo, and sort of mixed everything around it after I got the drum sound.
What a big difference between Eye on You and this. The drum sound alone is like such a different, because he's just propelling it into...
Eye on You could have been a much more rocking record. The big difference is I went to a real studio and recorded The Calling at Fantasy, where I did, you know, Escape and Frontiers with Journey,
a lot of history.
Biggest records. And... you know, I set up for real in a big studio. Eye on You I did in a bedroom at my house with a computer, and I had a Roland, you know, sample drum kit that Omar Hakim played, and that was, you know, he's such an amazing drummer. When I listen to it now, I'm like kicking myself that I didn't go into a real studio, at least just to record his drums.
Right, to have a better sound with him. Writing environments for this stuff, Neal, prior to going into the studio, are there particular writing environments you seek? Like, when does a riff come to you, or an idea in terms of the development?
You know, I like I said, I didn't write like full songs, and I never really do. Even going back to all the Journey stuff from the beginning, I used to carry around a cassette machine. I always had a cassette machine. Now it's a looping machine, you know. And I would just lay down. If I got a riff idea, a chording idea, or a melody, I just record it immediately so I wouldn't forget it. And so that's what I do now. And I knew with technology the way it is, you know,
it's
you can
advantageous.
Get a Line 6 or so many different looping devices. There's a great Roland one out there, a Boss unit, has you know, a drum machine in it and multiple recording. You know, you can overdub, you can put bass lines, you can, you know, put vocals on, and basically make like a fast little demo of not really a complete song, but your general idea of what you're going for.
Right, in terms of the development. That explains.
And so that's what I do anymore. And I fill up these machines, and then rather than dumping them into the computer and getting more confused, I just like buy another one. So I've got a closet full of sampling machines, you know.
That's awesome.
And when I go in the studio, I kind of bring them all in, and I plug them in, and I go, let's see what we got.
And figure out what you like from there.
Right.
The Calling, gotta be the most badass riff on this thing. I mean, and nowadays they're saying, like, with the way that the world works with songs and consumption, you gotta put that tune first on anything. I mean, the whole record is brilliant, but that one has this thumping classic rock kind of, like, the riff is huge.
The record was a different record to sequence, you know. I worked at it quite a while, and it's really funny. I heard it a zillion different ways, tried opening the record with other songs that I actually thought were better songs on the record, and somehow the flow, when I listened from beginning to end, it didn't quite flow as well as the order that I have it in now. And I really, you know, I recorded a record so quickly, but mixing a record, I mixed on and off for about 2 years. I wanted to like let it digest a bit. I like riding around on a motorcycle listening to it. I like driving to it. I'd go to Nashville. I'd work with Dave Komolsky. you know, the engineer that mixed the record with me and also mixed Last Journey record. He's very talented, and I checked it out for a while. You know, I'd go there and I'd spend like 3-4 days mix, and then I'd come home and listen to it for a while. And then I go back to him and go, no, I'm not quite happy with this direction on this song, and I hear it kind of going here. And I really took my time. I spent a lot of money actually mixing the record. And but really, you know, that's the finishing touch of any record. And it doesn't matter how good it is. If you record it in one day and it sounds phenomenal, the playing, if it doesn't sound good in the end when somebody's listening to it, it's like you playing in a concert with a bad mixer in front.
Right.
You know, nobody's going to hear anything that you're doing, so it doesn't matter.
It's like doing it in a vacuum. This way you're constantly taking a sample of it, keeping your ears as the ultimate arbiter of what to do. And on that note of the sequencing, when you talk about that, I've been like, songs, like I get them stuck in my head. I get the carnival jazz, that ending when you make, I guess it's like the key change when the keyboard solo comes in, like towards the second half of that. Yeah. Stuff like that, when you say that you developed it in little chunks, that ending segment there, how did that come about? That was a... You
know what? It was just completely improvised.
Wow.
And what I had, all I had on that song was the rhythm. I came up with a lot of the rhythms, the sideways rhythms that are on there. I either played Smith something or I hummed it to him.
Oh, wow.
You know, the sideways drum stuff, I'm always coming up with stuff that's kind of like African sounding.
And you hum what you want?
Not so, you know, straight ahead. I like kind of sideways drums, more straight ahead like bass lines and sideways drums, and something the guitar can move around with a bit. And so I had, you know, the basic riff and the rhythm and a melody in the beginning, and the rest of it's like improvised. And then when we cut it, Smith just kept playing, you know, and he laid down the drums before anybody played on it, really. I mean, I just played a rhythm guitar, and I laid the basic thing, and then I just, you know, multiplied it for, I don't know, it could be like 4 minutes, whatever, Steve, you know, just keep playing. And so he's out there playing, and then he went into his jazz thing and started playing at the end, just kept on grooving. So after I heard it, I went, wow, you know, it's sort of, you know, I listened to it for a while and I went, let's just make it go somewhere different.
Right.
And I came up with the chords, you know, and kind of played a little more outside, you know, like jazz.
Yeah, dissonance.
And then, you know, I went, Igor, you know, he plays like such great piano, acoustic piano. And so I thought, you know, like, I think, you know, guitar records are really great, but there's been so much that's been done that you have to kind of pass the ball around and let other people play, and then it kind of changes the color format and, you know, gives people, you know, a little bit more
contrast.
Yeah, contrast is important, I think, to keep someone's interested in an instrumental.
There was another jam on there. There were a couple of them, but real big, like metal sort of build up. And I guess it was True Emotion that made me, reminded me of almost Tony Iommi at the end, the way the thing just like builds and builds. You know, there's like a lot of different flavors on this thing.
You know, every song was its own song, and you know, I tried not to repeat
any kind of thing, right?
Yeah, you know,
it shows.
Steve was really good for me to work like that with too, because we'd listen to it, and as it was going down, and we'd say, "No, we already have one like that. Let's do something different."
Backsmash also, by the way,
yeah.
And the Backsmash, where it's almost like Metallica-esque kind of thing, and you have the acoustic solo that you do in there.
I put the acoustic solo on. There was no acoustic solo, and as I was mixing the record, I heard it go by, and before there was an acoustic solo there was the orchestration Igor had done, and there's an oboe, really beautiful oboe line that he plays, and this orchestration and these counter string parts, and it sounded like done to me, but I was sitting there mixing it, and I go, what about, like, you know, a nylon string guitar solo there, a classical guitar, you know, sound, just it's something different, because the song is so electric.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the contrast, you know, ended up working really well, and so I did it like in the last minute.